The millionaire's daughter was paralyzed until the cleaning woman did the impossible. Richard Thompson watched his daughter Emma through the window of his Beverly Hills mansion office, feeling his chest tighten once again. The 3-year-old girl sat motionless in her special wheelchair, which cost more than most people's cars, with that same empty stare that hadn't changed in 6 months. Then he heard a soft voice from the garden. The new cleaning woman had arrived that morning, sent by the agency that provided domestic staff for the area's most luxurious homes. Margaret Wilson was 45, her dark hair tied in a simple bun, and something in her brown eyes caught little Emma's attention the moment she approached. "Hi, Princess," Margaret said, kneeling to meet the wheelchair's height. "What beautiful hair you have. Blonde like rays of sunshine." Emma didn't respond as usual. She hadn't spoken, smiled, or reacted to anything since that terrible day in April when she witnessed her parents' most violent argument, the day her mother, Jennifer, slammed the door and never returned. "Margaret, leave the child alone and go tend to the main room," ordered Martha, the head housekeeper who had ruled the home with an iron fist for 15 years. "Mr. Richard doesn't like anyone bothering Emma without permission." But there was something different in how Margaret looked at the girl. It wasn't pity or morbid curiosity like the other staff showed. It was recognition, as if she saw something no one else could. Richard descended the imported marble staircase, the sound of his dress shoes echoing through the grand foyer that resembled a museum. At 38, his brown hair was always impeccable, his tailored suits costing more than an entire family's yearly income. He had built a real estate empire, yet he couldn't make his own daughter walk again. "Who are you?" he asked, eyeing the new employee still whispering softly to Emma. "Margaret Wilson, sir. I'm here for cleaning. The agency said you needed someone experienced with large homes." Richard was about to dismiss her when he noticed something unusual. Emma had slightly turned her head toward Margaret's voice. It was the first voluntary movement she'd made in months. "Martha, take Emma to her room. It's time for her rest." "Yes, Mr. Richard." As Martha pushed the wheelchair away, Richard saw Emma try to glance back at Margaret. A strange chill ran down his spine. Since the accident, what he called his daughter's trauma, dozens of expensive specialists had examined her. Neurologists from New York, child psychiatrists from Chicago, even a renowned doctor flown in from Boston. All reached the same conclusion. Physically, there was nothing wrong with Emma. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. That night, Richard stayed late in his office, reviewing contracts for 3 high-end developments underway. His firm, Thompson & Associates, was responsible for Beverly Hills and Brentwood's most luxurious buildings. Work had always been his refuge, especially after Jennifer left. Jennifer Parker Thompson, 29, blonde like her daughter, an architecture graduate who never practiced. She'd preferred being the wife of a successful businessman, attending exclusive clubs, traveling to London twice a year, until their perfect life began crumbling. The fights had started months before she left. Richard worked longer hours, came home late, left early. Jennifer felt abandoned, questioning if she'd made the right life choices. The arguments grew more frequent, more vicious, and Emma witnessed everything. The 2.5-year-old at the time could already speak in full sentences, ran all over the house and laughed loudly. She was a bright, curious little girl who loved playing hide-and-seek with her father on weekends. Everything changed that April Sunday. Richard remembered every detail as if it were yesterday. Jennifer was packing her bags in their bedroom when he returned from an emergency meeting. Emma was playing in the hallway, stacking colorful blocks. "I can't believe you went to work on a Sunday again," Jennifer shouted. "What kind of husband and father are you? I do this for both of you, to give you the best. That's a lie. You do it for yourself, for your ego. I can't take this life anymore." The yelling grew louder. Emma stopped playing and just watched, her little blue eyes wide with fear. When Jennifer threw a crystal vase against the wall, the little girl began to cry. "Now look what you've done. You scared Emma. It scared her." You're the one who won't stop screaming." That's when Jennifer said the words that still echoed in Richard's mind. "I've had enough. Enough of you, this house, this life. I'm leaving, and I'm never coming back." She rushed past Emma, who stretched out her little arms, crying, "Mommy, Mommy!" But Jennifer didn't stop. She slammed the door so hard that the family portrait fell off the wall and shattered on the marble floor. Emma stood there, staring at the broken pieces until her little legs simply gave out. She collapsed to the floor and couldn't get back up. In the days that followed, Richard realized something was wrong. Emma stopped speaking, stopped walking, stopped reacting to anything. The doctors ran every test imaginable: MRI, CT scan, blood work, neurological exams. Everything was normal. "It's psychosomatic paralysis," explained Dr. Michael Reynolds, a pediatric neurologist at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. "The emotional trauma caused a paralysis with no physical origin. It's extremely rare, but it happens. What's the treatment? Therapy, patience, and a lot of love. But I can't make any promises. Some children recover in weeks, others take years. Some never fully recover." Richard hired the best child psychologists, occupational therapists, and physical therapists. He turned one of the mansion's rooms into a therapy space. He bought the most expensive equipment, imported educational toys, everything money could buy. But Emma remained unchanged, like a porcelain doll someone had broken from the inside. The next morning, Richard left early for a meeting with Japanese investors who wanted to fund his next project. When he returned for lunch, he found Margaret in the garden sitting on the grass beside Emma's wheelchair. She was telling a story about a little girl who lived on a farm in rural Vermont. "And then Lily discovered that the injured bird just needed love to fly again," Margaret said softly. "Do you know why, Emma? Because sometimes our hearts get hurt, and we forget how to do the things we once knew." Richard stopped behind a tree, watching. Emma was looking directly at Margaret. Her little eyes weren't empty like before. There was something there, a spark he hadn't seen in months. "Margaret," Martha's voice cut through the moment. "What are you doing? I told you not to bother the child." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Martha. It's just..." She seemed interested in the story. "Emma isn't interested in anything. Go clean the kitchen." As Margaret stood to leave, Emma slightly moved her right hand. It was almost imperceptible, but Richard saw it. She had tried to reach for Margaret. His heart raced. It was the first voluntary movement Emma had made since the trauma. He needed to find out what was special about Margaret. That night, he called her into his office to talk. Margaret entered timidly, drying her hands on her apron. "Please, have a seat. I want to talk about my daughter." "Did I do something wrong, Mr. Richard?" "Quite the opposite. Today she moved when you were nearby. It was the first reaction we've seen from her in 6 months." Margaret looked away, clearly uncomfortable. "It must have been a coincidence." "It wasn't a coincidence. Do you have experience with children?" There was a long silence. Margaret took a deep breath before answering. "I had a daughter, a long time ago." "Had?" "She isn't with me anymore." Richard realized it was a painful subject, but he needed to know more. "I'm so sorry. May I ask what happened?" Margaret raised her eyes, and Richard saw deep pain there. A pain he recognized because he had felt something similar ever since Jennifer left. Her name was Sarah. She was about Emma's age when she went through a similar trauma. I divorced her father, and she was deeply shaken. She stopped talking, playing, being a child. And how did she recover? With a lot of love and patience. It took nearly 2 years, but she became herself again. Richard leaned forward, interested. "Are you a psychologist?" Margaret hesitated. "I was. I left the profession after Sarah grew up and went to live with her father. I preferred cleaning work. It's simpler." "Where is your daughter now?" The question hit Margaret like a punch to the stomach. She closed her eyes, fighting back tears. "Sarah is 22. She's a veterinarian and lives in England with her husband. We haven't spoken in 3 years." "Why?" "Because she blames me for destroying the family. Says if I hadn't divorced her father, she wouldn't have gone through that trauma. That it was my fault." Richard understood why Margaret had given up psychology. Her own daughter blamed her for the problems she had in childhood. It must have been devastating for a professional who dedicated her life to caring for children. "Margaret, I have a proposal." "Sir?" I want you to work directly with Emma, to work. Not as a cleaner, but as a special caregiver. I'll pay 3 times what you're earning now." Margaret shook her head. "I can't, Mr. Richard. Martha wouldn't like it, and besides, I no longer have the credentials to work with children. My license is expired. I'd need refresher courses. I don't care about licenses, I care about results, and you're the first person who's gotten my daughter to react in 6 months. But I don't know if I can help. What if I make things worse? What if she regresses because of me?" Richard saw the fear in Margaret's eyes. She was terrified of failing another child. "It won't get worse. You saw how she responded to you today. There's a connection there that doesn't exist with anyone else." Margaret was silent for several minutes, clearly torn. "Can I think about it?" "Of course, but don't take too long. Every day that passes is harder for Emma." The next morning, Richard found Margaret in the garden again, telling another story to Emma. This time, she was talking about a girl who had forgotten how to smile. But one day the girl found a hurt butterfly, and as she cared for the butterfly, she realized she could still feel affection for something. That's when she remembered how to smile again. Emma was completely engrossed in the story. Her little eyes shone with an intelligence Richard hadn't seen in months. When Margaret finished speaking, Emma moved her lips slightly, as if trying to say something. Richard decided he couldn't wait any longer. "Margaret, will you accept my offer?" She looked at Emma, then at him. "I will, but on one condition." "What?" "We do it the right way. No rushing, no pressure. Emma will set the pace for her recovery, and if at any point you think it's not working, I stop." Agreed. Martha wasn't at all pleased with the change. For 15 years, she had been in charge of every domestic aspect of the household, including caring for Emma. Seeing a new housekeeper take on that responsibility wounded her professional pride. "Mr. Richard, with all due respect, don't you think it's wiser to leave Emma in the care of someone we barely know?" she asked that afternoon. "Martha, you've taken excellent care of Emma all these months, but now she needs a different kind of attention." "But sir, I know all of the girl's habits. I know exactly how she likes things done. This woman could mix everything up." Richard knew Martha was genuinely concerned, but he also sensed jealousy in the equation. For years, she had been the second maternal figure in Emma's life. Seeing another woman take on that role was painful for her. "You'll still be essential in Emma's care. Margaret will focus specifically on the therapeutic side." Martha wasn't convinced, but she had no choice but to accept. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. In the first few days, Margaret established a simple routine with Emma. Every morning after breakfast, they spent 2 hours in the garden. Margaret didn't force any activities. She simply sat beside the wheelchair and talked. She spoke about the weather, the birds visiting the garden, the flowers blooming. Sometimes she shared stories from her own childhood in rural Vermont, where she grew up in a humble family that grew coffee. "You know, Emma, when I was little like you, I went through hard times too," Margaret said one sunny morning. "My parents fought a lot, and I was so scared. Sometimes I'd hide under the bed and cover my ears so I wouldn't hear the yelling." Emma was watching her intently. "But then my grandmother Elizabeth taught me something very important. She said when we're afraid, our hearts shrink and forget how to do the things we once knew. But if we're patient, our hearts grow back little by little." At that moment, Emma moved her head. It was a small movement, almost imperceptible but definitely deliberate. Margaret pretended not to notice so as not to startle the girl. Richard watched these sessions from his office window, feeling a mix of hope and anxiety. He desperately wanted his daughter to recover, but was afraid to set his expectations too high. A week after Margaret began working, something unexpected happened. Richard was in his office when he received a call that would change everything. "Hello? Richard? It's me, Jennifer." The world stopped. The voice of his ex-wife on the other end of the line brought back all the emotions of the last 6 months. Anger, hurt, longing, hope. "Jennifer, where are you?" In New York, I'm coming back to the United States. After 6 months without a word, without even asking about your daughter. I know I made mistakes, Richard, but I need to see Emma. How is she? Richard didn't know what to say. How could he explain that their daughter had been paralyzed since the day she left? How could he tell her that Emma didn't speak, didn't walk, barely reacted to the world around her? She's not well, Jennifer. What do you mean, not well? Is she sick? It's complicated. You'd better come see for yourself. I'll be there tomorrow. The call ended, leaving Richard with a whirlwind of emotions. Jennifer was coming back. Emma's mother was about to see her daughter after 6 months. Would it be good for the girl, or would it be too traumatic? He decided to tell Margaret about the call. She was in the garden with Emma, showing the girl how ants work together. Margaret, I need to talk to you. Of course, Mr. Richard. Emma's mother is coming tomorrow. Margaret stopped talking about the ants and looked directly at him. Your wife? Ex-wife. She left the day the day everything started. Margaret immediately understood the gravity of the situation. And how do you think Emma will react? I don't know, I'm scared. You have reason to be scared. Reuniting with the person who caused the trauma can be very delicate. Emma might regress completely. What do you think I should do? Margaret thought for a moment. Prepare Emma gradually. Talk to her about her mother. Remind her of good times. And most importantly, make sure she feels safe, that she knows there are people who won't abandon her. Richard agreed. That night, he sat by Emma's bedside for the first time in months. The little girl was awake, staring at the ceiling. Emma, Daddy needs to talk to you, he said, taking her small hand in his. Do you remember Mommy? Emma turned her face toward her father's voice. It was the first time in months she had made direct eye contact with him. Mommy is coming back, sweetheart. She wants to see you. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Richard felt his heart shatter. Even without speaking, she was clearly emotional. Daddy won't let anything bad happen to you, okay? You're safe here with me. That night, Emma had nightmares. Richard was awakened by her cries at 3 in the morning. He found the girl sweaty and trembling in bed. Margaret had also heard and came running. She's having a nightmare, Richard explained. Margaret approached the bed slowly. Emma, you're safe. You're at home, with people who love you. Margaret's gentle voice seemed to calm the girl gradually. Her sobs subsided until she fell back asleep. She's scared about her mother's return, Margaret observed. How do you know? Because she associates her mother with abandonment. In her mind, if her mother comes back, she might leave again. And she couldn't bear going through that a second time. Richard realized Jennifer's return would be even more complicated than he'd imagined. The next morning, Jennifer arrived at the mansion driving a red Cadillac convertible. She was tanned, her hair shorter, wearing expensive clothes Richard didn't recognize. She seemed like a different person from the woman who had left 6 months earlier. Where's my daughter? Were her first words. Jennifer, before you see Emma, we need to talk. Talk about what? I want to see my daughter now. Richard led her to the office and closed the door. He needed to explain the situation before she saw Emma. Emma hasn't been well since you left. What do you mean, hasn't been well? She developed a psychosomatic paralysis. She doesn't walk, doesn't speak, barely reacts to anything. Jennifer turned pale. What do you mean, paralysis? She was fine when I left. She witnessed our last fight, Jennifer. She saw you leaving. It was too traumatic for her. Are you blaming me? I'm explaining what happened. Jennifer began to cry. My God, what have I done? My daughter. There's a woman working with her, a former psychologist. She's making slow progress, but it's happening. Emma needs stability now, Jennifer. She needs to feel safe. I want to see my daughter now. Richard knew protesting was pointless. He took Jennifer to the garden, where Margaret was with Emma. When the girl saw her mother, her reaction was immediate and devastating. Emma began crying desperately, trying to hide in her chair. Her small body trembled with fear. Margaret immediately stepped between Jennifer and the girl. Please, keep your distance, Margaret urged. She's very frightened. She's my daughter, Jennifer shouted, trying to get closer. Mommy. Emma spoke for the first time in 6 months, but it was a cry of despair, not joy. Richard stood frozen. His daughter had spoken, but she was clearly terrified by her mother's presence. Emma, sweetheart, it's Mommy. Jennifer tried to approach again. No, Emma screamed, and something incredible happened. She got up from the wheelchair and ran into Margaret's arms. Everyone was in shock. Emma was walking, she was speaking. But she was running away from her own mother. It's okay, Emma, you're safe, Margaret murmured, holding the trembling girl in her arms. Jennifer broke down in tears. She's afraid of me. My own daughter is afraid of me. Richard stepped forward slowly. The situation was too delicate. Emma had regained her movement and speech out of fear, not happiness. It was progress, but under traumatic circumstances. Jennifer, maybe it's best if you stay at a hotel tonight. Let Emma calm down. No, I'm not leaving again. I've already been away too long. Emma shrank further into Margaret's arms at the mention of her mother leaving. No one said you have to leave, Richard said calmly. Just give her time to get used to your presence. Margaret whispered in Emma's ear, Mommy is here because she loves you. She won't leave, but you need to feel ready to talk to her. Emma lifted her tear-streaked face and looked at Jennifer for the first time. Mommy's back. Her voice was faint, but they were the first words she'd spoken directly to her mother in 6 months. I'm back, sweetheart, and I'm never leaving again. Promise? Jennifer knelt on the floor, keeping a respectful distance. I promise, Emma. Mommy made a lot of mistakes, but she's learned. I'll never leave you again. Emma glanced at Margaret, as if asking for permission. You can trust Mommy's promise, Margaret said gently, but in your own time, your own way. Slowly, Emma stepped out of Margaret's arms and took a few hesitant steps toward her mother. They were shaky, uncertain steps, but they were her own. Jennifer waited until Emma was close before opening her arms. The girl threw herself into her mother's embrace, and they cried together for long minutes. Richard watched the scene with mixed emotions. He was happy to see Emma walking and talking, but he knew the road to reconciliation would be long and hard. That night, after Jennifer went to a nearby hotel, Richard spoke with Margaret about the next steps. What happened today was amazing, but also concerning, Margaret noted. Why? Because Emma regained her movement out of fear, not joy. That means the trauma is still very much there. One wrong move, and she could regress completely. What do you suggest? Family therapy. Jennifer needs to be part of the healing process, and so do you. Me. Emma didn't develop this paralysis just because her mother left. It was because of all the family instability she witnessed, the shouting, the fights, the constant tension. All of you need to heal together. Richard knew Margaret was right, but the idea of spending time with Jennifer was uncomfortable. There was too much hurt between them. In the following days, Jennifer visited Emma every afternoon. The meetings were supervised by Margaret, who set clear rules. No talking about the past in front of the girl, no promises that couldn't be kept, and most importantly, no pressure for Emma to show affection. Gradually, Emma grew used to her mother's presence again. She began playing with simple toys, eating normally, sleeping without nightmares. But the real test came 2 weeks later, when Jennifer said she wanted to take Emma for a weekend at the hotel. I don't think it's wise yet, Margaret said. She needs more time to trust completely. But she's my daughter. I want to have moments alone with her. And you will, but not now. Moving too fast could be harmful. Jennifer was frustrated, but Richard supported Margaret's decision. Emma was still too fragile to be away from the safety of the house. That's when Martha decided to interfere. She had watched everything in silence for weeks, seeing her position in the house threatened by Margaret, and watching the mistress she despised return to complicate things further. Mr. Richard, I need to speak with you, she said one afternoon. What is it, Martha? It's about this Margaret woman. Do you really know her past? I know enough. But do you know why she really lost her daughter? Richard stopped reading the documents in his hand. What do you mean by that? I did some digging. Her daughter didn't just go live with her father, she was taken from her custody by the courts. Richard felt a chill in his stomach. What do you mean, taken from her custody? Neglect, Mr. Richard. This Margaret was a workaholic, leaving the girl alone for hours. The child had serious psychological problems because of it. Richard didn't want to believe it. Had Margaret lied to him? Was she a danger to Emma? Where did you get this information? I have my sources. The important thing is you're putting Emma at risk. Richard decided to confront Margaret immediately. He found her in the garden teaching Emma how to plant sunflower seeds. Margaret, I need to speak with you. Now. His tone frightened Emma. Is Daddy mad? No, sweetheart, Daddy just needs to talk to Margaret. They went to the office. Richard closed the door and got straight to the point. Martha told me some things about your past, about your daughter. Margaret turned pale. What exactly did she say? That you lost custody of Sarah due to neglect. That you lied to me. Margaret sank heavily into a chair. She didn't lie completely. Richard felt his world crumbling. So it's true. Partly. I did lose custody of Sarah, but not for neglect in the way you're thinking. Then explain it to me. Margaret took a deep breath and began to tell the whole truth. When I divorced Sarah's father, she really developed psychological issues. She stopped speaking, became aggressive, started hurting herself. I was desperate. And then, I started working 14-hour days to pay for the best psychologists, the best treatments. I wanted to give her everything to recover. Richard began to understand, and she was alone during those hours. She stayed with nannies, my mother, neighbors, but I was always working, always chasing money for treatments. And your ex-husband used that against you. He told the courts I was a neglectful mother, that I put work above my daughter. And technically he was right. I was so obsessed with curing Sarah that I forgot to simply be there for her. Richard sat down too. The story was more complex than Martha had made it seem. And how did she recover then? With the stability her father provided. He had fewer resources, but he was present. That's what she needed. Presence, not expensive treatments. And you never spoke again. She blames me for destroying the family. And maybe she's right. Maybe if I'd been less obsessive, less controlling, things would have been different. Richard understood why Margaret had given up child psychology. The guilt must have been unbearable. Why didn't you tell me this from the start? Because I knew you wouldn't trust me. And I truly believed I could help Emma, because I know exactly what she's feeling. Richard was silent for a few minutes, processing everything. Margaret, I need to think about this. I understand. If you want me to leave, I will. But please don't let this affect Emma's progress. She's recovering well. I'll talk to Jennifer. We'll decide together. That night, Richard told Jennifer the whole situation. She was outraged. How could you let a woman like that take care of our daughter? Because she was helping Jennifer, Emma has improved more in the last few weeks than in all the previous months. But she lied. How can we trust her? She withheld part of the truth. But the results speak for themselves. No, I'm taking my daughter out of this house tomorrow. You can't do that, Jennifer. Emma is still fragile. Sudden changes could harm her. Then send that woman away. Richard was torn. On one hand, he understood Jennifer's reaction. On the other, he saw Emma's clear progress. The next morning, he decided to talk directly to Emma. The little girl was playing with dolls in her room, something she hadn't done in months. Emma, Daddy needs to ask you something. What, Daddy? How do you feel about Margaret? Emma stopped playing and looked seriously at her father. I like Margaret. She understands me. Understands you how? Her heart was hurt like mine. That's why she knows how to heal it. The 3-year-old's answer was deeper than Richard expected. And if Margaret has to leave? Emma's eyes filled with tears. Is she leaving like Mommy did? No. Mommy isn't leaving ever again. But maybe Margaret needs to work somewhere else. But I don't want her to go. She helps me not be scared. Richard realized he was facing an impossible decision. Keeping Margaret meant going against Jennifer. Sending her away could hurt Emma. He decided to try a different approach. He called all the women involved in the situation to a meeting: Jennifer, Margaret, and even Martha. "Let's settle this once and for all," he said. "All of you say you want what's best for Emma. So let's think about what really is best for her." Jennifer began. "What's best for my daughter is to be with her parents, away from people who lie and manipulate." Margaret responded, "What's best for her is stability and continuity in her treatment. Sudden changes could cause a setback." Martha added, "What's best is to keep the people who truly know the girl, who've cared for her all along." Richard listened to them all and then said, "You're all thinking about what's best for you, not Emma. Jennifer, you want to take her because you feel guilty. Margaret, you want to stay because you need to make up for the past. Martha, you don't want anything to change because you're afraid of losing your place." They all fell silent. "Emma needs all of you, but in different ways. Jennifer, you're her mother. Nothing can replace that. Margaret, you have the expertise that's helping her. Martha, you know her routines and habits better than anyone." Richard paused and looked at each of them. "So here's my proposal. We'll work together as a team for Emma's sake. Jennifer, you'll move back home. Margaret, you'll continue the therapeutic work. Martha, you'll keep managing the household, and I'll be more involved in my daughter's life." It was a solution no one expected. Jennifer was surprised. "You want me to come back home?" "I want us to try rebuilding the family for Emma's sake, not necessarily as husband and wife, but as cooperative parents." Margaret asked, "And does Mrs. Jennifer accept that I keep working with Emma?" Jennifer looked at Margaret for a few seconds before answering, "If you promise to be completely honest from now on, and if it's truly best for my daughter, I accept." Martha didn't like the idea, but she had no choice but to agree. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The arrangement wasn't easy at first. Jennifer moved into one of the guest rooms in the mansion, keeping her distance physically from Richard, but staying close to Emma. Family meals were tense, with forced conversations and awkward silences. Margaret established a new routine that included time alone with Emma, time with Emma and Jennifer together, and time with the whole family. Each step was carefully planned to strengthen bonds without pressuring the little girl. Emma continued to make progress. She started playing normally again, running around the house and throwing typical 3-year-old tantrums. But there were still signs of trauma. She didn't like shouting, grew nervous when she saw her parents having serious conversations, and always checked to make sure the important people were nearby. 2 weeks after the new arrangement, something unexpected happened. Emma woke up in the middle of the night screaming. It wasn't an ordinary nightmare. She was having a panic attack. Richard got to her room first, followed by Jennifer and Margaret. Emma was in her crib, trembling and screaming, "Don't go away! Don't go away!" "Who's not going away, sweetheart?" Richard asked, trying to calm her. "Margaret!" Emma cried. "She'll go away like Mommy did." Margaret slowly approached the bed. "Emma, look at me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. Promise?" "I promise." "And Mommy?" Jennifer stepped closer too. "Mommy promises too. I'll never leave again." "And Daddy?" Richard held his daughter's tiny hand. "Daddy's not going anywhere either. We're all here." Emma gradually calmed down, but the episode was revealing. She still carried a deep fear of being abandoned by any of the important figures in her life. The next morning, Margaret spoke with Richard and Jennifer about what had happened. "Last night's episode shows Emma has developed intense separation anxiety. She needs constant reassurance." "What can we do?" Jennifer asked. "Most importantly, keep every promise we make to her. Even a small breach of trust could cause a setback." Richard understood the gravity of the situation. "So none of us can just walk out of her life." "Exactly. You've all made a long-term commitment, especially me. I've become a source of security for her." Jennifer was clearly uncomfortable with the idea. "So you'll work here forever?" "For as long as it takes for her to feel completely safe. It could be months, it could be years." The conversation was interrupted by Emma, who appeared at the office door. "Why are you talking without me?" It was a simple question, but it revealed her constant worry that decisions about her life were being made without her knowing. "We were just talking about how to take better care of you," Richard explained. "Are you going to fight?" "No, sweetheart, we're not going to fight. And no one's going away." "No one's going away," Jennifer assured her. Emma seemed satisfied and went back to playing, but the episode showed how alert she still was for signs of conflict or abandonment. In the following months, the household dynamics gradually stabilized. Richard cut back on work hours to spend more time with Emma. Jennifer enrolled in child psychology courses to better understand how to help her daughter. Margaret continued therapy sessions, but now included the whole family. The relationship between Richard and Jennifer remained polite, but distant. They slept in separate rooms, avoided conversations about the past, and focused entirely on Emma's well-being. It wasn't a marriage in the traditional sense, but it was a functional family. Margaret had become a cornerstone of their family dynamic. In addition to her work with Emma, she began mediating conflicts between Richard and Jennifer, helping them communicate more effectively as parents. One day, Emma asked a question that took everyone by surprise. "Margaret, why don't you have a daughter to play with me?" Margaret was visibly moved. "I did have a daughter, Emma, but she grew up and moved far away." "Why?" "Because sometimes families grow apart, but that doesn't mean we stop loving each other." "Do you miss her?" "I miss her very much." "Then call her to come play with me." The innocence of the suggestion touched Margaret deeply. She had never considered reaching out to Sarah. That night, Margaret talked to Richard about the possibility. "Maybe it's time to try speaking with your daughter," he suggested. "I don't know if she'll want to talk to me. I've tried a few times, but she always refuses. But now you have something different to share. About your work here, about how you're helping Emma. Do you think so?" "I think it's worth a try." Margaret decided to write a letter to Sarah. It wasn't easy finding the right words after 3 years of silence. "Dear Sarah, I know you may not want to read this letter, but I need to try, not to ask for forgiveness again, but to share what I've learned. Over the past few months, I've been working with a girl your age who went through family struggles like ours. She also developed psychosomatic paralysis after a family trauma. And in helping her heal, I understood so much about what happened between us. You were right when you said I was too obsessive, that I put my own fears above your needs. I thought loving you intensely made me a good mother. But love isn't about intensity. Love is presence, it's consistency, it's listening. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to know that I've learned, and that no matter what, I love you, and I'm so proud of the woman you've become. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here. With eternal love, Mum." Margaret sent the letter without much hope for a reply, but a week later, she received a call that would change everything. "Mom?" Sarah's voice on the other end made Margaret break down in tears. "Sarah, you got my letter." "I did, and I want to talk to you." "Really?" The letter made me think about a lot of things. Maybe I was too hard on you too. They talked for 2 hours that first call. Sarah shared about her life in England, her veterinarian husband, and their plans to have children. Margaret told her about Emma, how working with the girl had helped her understand her own mistakes as a mother. "Do you really think you can help this child?" Sarah asked. "I am helping. She's almost fully recovered." "Then you haven't lost the gift you always had with children. You just lost your way for a while." Her daughter's words were like a balm to Margaret's old wounds. "Sarah, do you forgive me?" "Mum, we both made mistakes. I was too proud, too resentful. I think it's time we try again." The next day, Margaret shared the news with Emma. The little girl was thrilled. "Is your daughter coming to play with me?" "She lives very far away, Emma, but maybe one day she'll visit." "I'm going to like her so much." The reconciliation with Sarah gave Margaret new energy. She became even more dedicated to her work with Emma, who continued to progress quickly. The girl was now attending a private preschool in the mornings, playing with other children, and showing all the signs of a happy, healthy child. Richard and Jennifer had also found balance as parents. Though they hadn't rekindled their romantic relationship, they developed an effective partnership in raising Emma. Arguments became rare, replaced by mature conversations about their daughter's education and future. 1 year after Margaret began her work, Emma celebrated her 4th birthday with a garden party at the mansion. There were other children from school, family members, and even Sarah, who had come from England, especially for the occasion. Seeing Margaret with her own daughter was deeply moving. They still had much to rebuild, but the love between them was evident. Sarah was impressed by her mother's work. "Emma is a very special child," she remarked to Richard, "and my mother has done an incredible job with her." "Your mother saved my daughter," Richard replied, "and I believe my daughter also saved your mother." During the party, Emma gave a speech that touched everyone. "I want to thank everyone who helped me get better. Daddy, who's the best daddy in the world. Mommy, who came back and will never leave again. Margaret, who taught me that a hurt heart can heal. Martha, who makes the best cake. And Sarah, who's like a big sister to me." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. 2 years passed. Emma was now 5, fully recovered. A happy, bright child who loved telling stories to anyone who would listen. Margaret had formally resumed her psychology studies, taking refresher courses at night while continuing to work with Emma. Richard and Jennifer had found a unique balance. They were no longer husband and wife, but they were still a family. They lived in the same house, shared responsibilities, and even developed a genuine friendship. Occasionally, Richard dated others, as did Jennifer, but always with transparency and respect for Emma's well-being. The little girl had learned to navigate this untraditional family dynamic. To her, family wasn't defined by conventional rules, but by love, presence, and commitment. One day, Emma asked Margaret, "When I grow up, will you still be my friend?" "Forever, Emma, even when you're a grown-up like Sarah. And will you teach me how to help other kids with hurt hearts?" "If you want me to, yes." "I do, because it feels really good to help people be happy again." Margaret smiled, realizing Emma had internalized the most important lesson, that healing comes through love, patience, and presence. Years later, when Emma was 8, she wrote a school essay about family that perfectly captured her journey. "My family is different from other families. My parents don't share a bedroom, but they like each other as friends. I have Margaret, who isn't my mom, but took care of me when my heart was sick. I have Martha, who knows how to make all my favorite foods. I have Sarah, who lives far away, but sends me beautiful letters. When I was little, I got very sick because I thought the people I loved would leave. But I learned that real family never leaves, even if sometimes they live in different places. My teacher said a traditional family is a father, mother, and children. But I think family is any group of people who love and take care of each other, and that's why my family is the best in the world." The essay was chosen to be read at the 3rd grade graduation. When Emma finished, she received a standing ovation from the parents present, many moved by the girl's wisdom. Richard, Jennifer, and Margaret sat in the audience, proud of the brave and wise child Emma had become. The journey had been long and difficult, but they had all learned valuable lessons about love, family, and healing. After the ceremony, Emma ran to hug all the important people in her life. There was no fear in her eyes anymore, only joy and security. She had completely overcome her childhood trauma and grown into a strong, intelligent, and compassionate girl. Margaret watched the scene with a heart full of gratitude. She had come to that house as a simple cleaner, carrying her own wounds. But in Emma, she found not just a child to heal, but an opportunity to heal herself. Richard had learned that financial success didn't guarantee family happiness. That presence mattered more than expensive gifts. That being a father was a job requiring full dedication, not just financial resources. Jennifer had learned that running from problems didn't solve them. That family commitment was more important than personal satisfaction. That being a mother meant putting her daughter's needs above her own desires. And Emma had learned the most important lesson of all, that even when a heart is badly hurt, it can heal with love, patience, and people who truly care. That night, after all the guests had left, the family gathered in the garden where it had all begun 3 years earlier. Emma ran freely across the grass, playing with the butterflies dancing among the flowers. Look how happy she is, Jennifer observed. It's been a long journey, said Richard. But worth every moment, Margaret added. Emma stopped running and looked at the three adults who had dedicated so much of themselves to help her heal. Do you know the best part about feeling better? She asked. What? They replied in unison. It's knowing that now I can help other kids with hurt hearts, just like you helped me. And in that moment, they all realized the miracle hadn't just been Emma's healing. The miracle had been how one small child had taught all the adults around her the true meaning of family, love, and forgiveness. The girl, once paralyzed by fear of abandonment, had become a source of healing for everyone around her. And perhaps that was the most powerful lesson of all, that sometimes to heal others we first need to let them heal us too. The end of the story. Now tell us, what did you think of this story of overcoming and family love? Do you believe Margaret made the right decisions in choosing to help Emma, despite carrying her own past wounds? Share your thoughts in the comments. We love reading your heartfelt words. Don't forget to like this video, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories like this one. Thank you for being with us.